Hello, I'm Michelle, aka Imagination Reigns, and I've just been thinking that there's a lot out there for artists on kind of the physical obstacles that we have, like building our website or how to do your first art fair, and not so much about the emotional obstacles, our emotional well being. So I kind of wanted to touch on that on this channel and this video specifically. And today I wanted to talk about introverted artists and networking. And don't click away because I said networking. Hear me out for a minute. I'm going to put on a time lapse and let's get started. I did not realize how important networking was until this year. Until 2026, I did absolutely zero networking. And the effect that it has had on my art business has been dramatic. And if you're a shy artist, one, congratulations, you are part of the majority. I feel that most artists either identify themselves as shy or at least reserved. I remember my boyfriend used to say that networking was my kryptonite.
No, I don't want to do that.
You're going to have a great time.
No, no, no,
You
no.
might meet some new people.
No, no, no,
You
no.
can even make some new friends.
No, 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 no. No.
I know that from experience, going to an in person event can be extremely overwhelming. But if you do have the opportunity to do so, force yourself to do it. It really makes a difference. And what I try to do is that when I'm getting ready for an event, all I think about is what I'm going to wear and how do I get there. I don't think about talking to people or networking. And that kind of keeps me from chickening out. I'm not thinking about all the different scenarios in my head that may or may not happen. And that's usually where the nervousness comes from. It's all these situations that we're making up that might not be real. And honestly, once you do your first few events, it gets a lot easier. My sixth event was 1,000% less nerve wracking than my first one, but the nerves are still there. I have an art fair tomorrow, and I have butterflies, and not the good kind. So the nerves are still there, but it does get a lot better. So let's get into some tips about making it through a gallery event. You may feel an obligation to talk the entire event. Don't do that. That is the best way to burn yourself out. What I try to do is I find someone to have a conversation with, have a nice little conversation, and then I take breaks. So I will, after the conversation is ended, I will go and get a drink of water. A lot of galleries have little snacks like crackers and things like that. I'm usually not hungry because one, I don't like eating in public, and two, I am so nervous that don't feel like eating. But regardless, I'll usually grab a couple of things and I'll sit down and eat because most people, it makes sense that you don't want to talk while you're eating. And that kind of gives me time to relax and take a break and decompress before I start another conversation. And if you don't want to eat food, it is totally okay to just sit and look at the art. There's usually chairs or benches, and then I will go and just sit and stare at the art. And it's completely acceptable, and lots of other people are doing it too. And even if you've seen the art already, it's okay. It's just a time to sit, stop, breathe before you go on to the next conversation. I pretty much do this on repeat until the end of the event, and that gets me through without having to talk the entire time. And some events are longer than others. So I think I've been to an event that's 2 hours, and then I've been to one that was 6 or 7 hours. And during those really long ones, like I can't do it for that long. So what I usually do is I excuse myself and I go get lunch. And I either actually go and eat or I go out and I'll just sit at a park or something or somewhere nearby. I'll call my boyfriend and have a conversation. And then that way I can get maybe like a half hour to an hour where I'm not at the event. And then after I've recharged, then I go back and I feel better and ready to talk to more people. So you can do that if you're at something longer. And then really get to know yourself too. How long can you last in an event? If you're like, I can only last an hour, that's all I got. What I will sometimes do is that I will set my arrival time so that I'm only there for an hour. So if I want to be there at the beginning, I'll just say it starts at 6, I'm going to leave at 7. Or maybe I'll like, okay, I'm going to come in at 7 when it starts at 6 and it ends at 8. I'm only there for an hour. That's completely okay. I don't think most of the shows that I've been to that I've been there like at the start all the way to the end. I did that for my first one. Don't do that. But you can decide when you go to that event and you'll still meet people, you'll still have great conversations, and it'll be okay. Nobody cares. I think my biggest fear about socializing is that I'm either going to say something stupid or I'm not likable. Probably same fear on YouTube too. And I feel like going into networking with that expectation that every conversation is going to be rainbows and butterflies is just unrealistic. You're going to have bad conversations. And I'm going to have bad conversations because one, because I'm awkward, and two, because not everyone is going to gel with you. That's just, people. We're all very different. And what I try to think of is an analogy with softball or baseball. And I play neither, so I apologize if this doesn't make sense. But you're not going to hit the ball every single time you play, unless you're really good at softball. And that's what I try to think of in conversations as well. Every conversation is not going to be great, and that's okay. So when I have an awkward conversation, I just say in my head, wow, that didn't go well. And I move on to the next. I try not to beat myself up about it. There's always an opportunity for another conversation. And at the end of the day, that awkward conversation doesn't matter. Nobody's going to remember it except probably you. You are your worst critic. And the nice thing about networking with artists is that you have a room full of shy and awkward people. Like they're really understanding. I remember going to an event and at the end of it, I said, wow, that is the first time that I was the most extroverted person in the room. And I feel that because we are kind of have all the same struggle, that people are willing to overlook when you're awkward. I know that when I have a conversation with someone who's shyer than me, I'm happy to help nudge the conversation along because I know what it feels like. So I have some empathy there. So I wouldn't be too concerned about having an awkward conversation. I really wouldn't. You're in pretty safe company. It's okay to make mistakes, and it's a skill that you will develop the more and more events that you go to. And take into consideration that it's going to be a lot easier talking at an art event than it is a different kind of networking event. Like if you've ever been to a job fair or a party with a bunch of people you don't know, it's hard to have a conversation sometimes because maybe you don't have something in common with the other people or you're just not passionate about whatever is being talked about. And at an art event, you're talking about what you love to do and you're talking to someone else who loves it as well. So I think I would bet that it's going to be so much easier talking at a gallery event than it is any other networking event, and you'll find it a lot easier. It still will be hard, but you're talking about something that lights you up, so it'll come a bit more naturally. For some advice on the actual talking part, I usually have some icebreakers in my head before I get to the event. Because if I get there and I don't have anything, my mind's obviously going to be blank because that's what happens when I talk to people. So I generally have questions like I'll ask, are you an artist showing here? Which one's your piece? And then they'll usually go and show me what their piece is. And then I'll ask, oh, what medium do you use? And I'll ask it even if it's on the tag there because there's so many different mediums at the gallery shows. There's a lot of like 3D artists that are using, crayons glued up there, crystals. So it can be a really great conversation starter asking about the medium, especially if you don't know anything about it. Then I'll ask, what inspired this piece? And here I'm looking for more the story behind the artwork or the emotional part of the artwork. And I highly recommend that you know how to answer this question for your own art before you get to the gallery because you will be asked it many times. And I had one gallery show where they actually had me interview in front of a camera stating the meaning behind my piece. And if I hadn't practiced it beforehand, I would have been in trouble. And sometimes, because I'm interested in the business side of art, I may ask, do you do artwork full time? Do you do it part time? Is it just a hobby? And I feel like most people don't get offended by that question. And then it really opens up the conversation to talk about the business side of art. And I ask those questions, and the conversation usually flows from there. And then I do try not to monopolize any one person's time. Like when you're really vibing with someone, you can get that kind of urge, like, oh, I'm going to stick with you because I don't want to have an awkward conversation with someone else. But I try to let everybody, mingle and not latch on to one person. So I just say, it was really nice to meet you. I love your piece and I'll see you around, or enjoy the show. And that's it. I don't think it's too awkward, but I don't really obsess over it too much. And yeah, I try to have at least one good conversation. I usually have more than that. And other than that, I'm just really excited to have my piece being shown, and hopefully to make a couple good conversations and just get some live feedback from people. If you're unsure if networking is important, I really think that if you're growing an art business, it is crucial. If you could see where I was a year ago compared to now after I started doing art galleries and art fairs, it is night and day. It really gave my business a jump start, and it was on life support. It kind of comes back to the old advice, it's not what you know, it's who you know. uh, the connections that I create at these events give me a few things. One, I'm able to get advice from artists in my area. That makes a difference than someone that you're just listening to on YouTube. Like, they know the art community that you live in. And then I can also ask advice that affects me personally in real time. Two, I'm also able to get insight into events that I wouldn't have known about. Like, I wouldn't have found it online or anything like that. I think that three of the gallery shows that I applied to, I found out from artists that I had met at other events. So, yeah, just getting insight into things that are happening in your community that you wouldn't have known otherwise. And then three, those connections I make, I usually try and get people's social media, Instagram specifically, when I meet someone who's really cool. And those people are now a more engaged audience because they know me. So when I post something, they're, well, not totally emotionally invested, but they have more of an emotional investment because they've met me before. And I think it's really cool because then we're able to stay connected, and then we're artists just helping each other's practice by, being there on social media and liking and commenting on posts. And yeah, it's really nice to be able to follow all these people that you met at art events. I think once you meet some really cool artists and see some really cool art, that networking will be less scary and you'll actually be excited to go to a new art event. I'll end with this quote from an artist that has really affected me. And he said, I am so shy, but I love being an artist more than I love being shy. And so whenever I have something that I feel like I can't do because of my shyness, or an event that I'm thinking about not going to because of my shyness, I think about that quote. I love being an artist more than I love being shy. I hope this made you feel a little bit less nervous about networking or going to art shows. And if you want me to do a video on how to get into gallery shows, let me know in the comments. I will tell you, it's a lot easier to get in the gallery show than it is to get a job right now. Enter sad music here. Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Keep painting.